Good morning. Welcome to the Daily Office Digest. We are in Numbers and Hebrews. And Numbers, we see a common theme with the Israelites wandering in the wilderness where they fell to a lusting. They want their stuff. They want their appetites to be sated. And they're weeping, complaining, and in a sense conspiring together against the Lord and his man Moses. But they want flesh to eat, not just manna. We want the fish. We want, which we had in Egypt freely, cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, garlic. Later on, we'll also see flesh pots as they were uh, a slave's meal. So, there's some nice seasonings, some nice foods in Egypt, and they would rather have that than freedom and redemption in the Lord and the covenant. So that's actually a very human, sinful response or habit or vice to fall into. And they want, there's a lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes going on here. And they're complaining about it. They're tired of the manna, even though that's keeping them alive. And you know how miraculous that is. They're in the middle of a desert and God just keeps giving them bread. Moses hears about this, and of course, how he heard about that, was it gossip or was it just people complaining to him, rioting, whatever? And God's mad because it's a tremendous ingratitude, and again, desiring to be back in Egypt rather than to be with God, and kind of spurning the salvation God wrought for them. As you know, they've forgotten about the heavy toil and the genocidal campaigns and all the other things in Egypt. All they want is a change up in the buffet or the smorgasbord. Moses is displeased with this. God's mad at the people, and Moses is upset with the people too. The way he's having to bear the brunt of this, so he actually lays out his frustrations before God. Right? He's like, "If I can see these people, did I give birth to this people? That I have to carry them around? Why do I have to carry them around?" So he's also at his limit where he's complaining because he's dealing with these annoying people. Um, if I have to keep doing this, um, and I have to do this alone, interestingly, they're too heavy for me, right? It's a whole nation. Um, and if you're gonna make me carry them alone, just kill me. Just kill me now. Kill me now. Um, so he asks for help, and God's like, am I weak? Is my arm wax short? My hand wax short? Do I have not the power to deal with this? Um, and God sends quail from the sea, and it falls all across. They get meat. They have bread now and meat. They're going to get sick of the quail as well. Basically, that's what God's response is. But avian uh, sustenance, something to think about there with regard to kind of the bestiary of the Old Testament. You often have sustenance from the avian. And the birds, get to kind of, how they relate to the garden and the temple is interesting too. They kind of get to transition between the rest of the earth and the special space God inhabits. And large, clean livestock, clean animals get to as well, right? There's doves in addition to the goats, the sheep, the oxen. But the focus, at least in our lectionary, is just God answers it. Now, there's a little bit more around that in the actual wider passage. If you want to read all of Numbers 11, you certainly may. Hebrews is continuing on. So we've talked about these great faithful saints in the past. They are a cloud of witnesses to us now, right? We're surrounded by that. This is our heritage in a sense. This is who is watching us as witnesses, right? You watchers and you holy ones. Let's continue on the fight. Let's continue on the race. The baton has been passed to us. They are cheering us on as we continue on. So lay aside every weight. So don't meddle around with sin. Run with patience the race that is set before us, right? Looking to Jesus, the author, so the beginner, the starter, the creator, and finisher of our faith, right? He brings it to completion as well as a beginning, right? He initiates as well as completes. And he endured his cross, despising his shame, and the result of that is glorification. That humiliation results in glorification. Um, and he didn't have to do that, especially from sinners, right? He was sinned against. And when you're done wrong like that, it's like, well, it's not my just desserts. This is people treating me unfairly, and you get really upset about it. And that is exactly what Jesus got. So if he can do it, and he has no faults whatsoever, you can do it too. Suffer for righteousness' sake. You have not yet resisted unto blood. Remember that whenever you feel like giving up, you haven't resisted unto blood yet, right? You're not uh, injured or dying yet. You're not dead yet. Um, Especially when you're striving against sin, right? Oh, I'm struggling so much with sin. Well, you're still alive, so you didn't struggle that hard, right? It's better to die than to commit sin. Um, that's something important to remember, and whenever we forget that, is whenever our head's in the wrong place. Um, and then there's chastening from the Lord, right? So there is a chastening. So we're unlike Jesus. We aren't perfect, and we do need to be corrected and perfected. If you don't have any chastisement for your iniquities, for your sin, to teach you in the way to go, you're a bastard. You're not a legitimate son. That's the argument here. Um, Bastards are not raised up and disciplined to be the heirs of the house. They're illegitimate, but legitimate son would be the one that is going to shoulder the responsibility as well as the honor of being an heir of the household. For we had fathers of our flesh which corrected us, and we gave them reverence. It's interesting we live in a time where that's happening less and less. Just the way fatherhood's being tossed out. It's either being turned into motherhood 2.0, or the father isn't present in the house, so we have a lot of single parent households, or there's no correction going on because they want to be treated like your friend and buddy and pal. Lots of dysfunctions there. If you don't have that in your own life, you're going to lack, you're not going to be able to understand the metaphors well. That's what's really important about all this and how we carry on these traditional ways. They are an analogy and metaphor to help us and our children really understand the truth, spiritual realities, right? It's kind of scary when you think about that, when everything kind of evaporates and breaks down, is they have no reference point for what is being talked about here. But there you have it. We have a lot going on here with regard to chastening, right? It's momentary, but it brings forth, everlasting glory. And again, a call to be strong and be healed, and to, again, run this race set before us. And vigilance. Any root of bitterness springing up trouble you, and thereby be defiled. Many be defiled. That root of bitterness, it's easy. I often would think of that in terms of like a bitterness inside each and every single one of us, like in our hearts. But actually how that's used in the Old Testament, if I remember right from studying this, the root of bitterness is actually a person, kind of like the bad apple that ruins the whole bunch. I remember that being the case. And I'm kind of wondering if there's a call to accountability here among ourselves as a church, not just look inside yourself and any sort of bitterness you have in yourself. This is actually talking about a person or people that are problematic, that endanger the whole fellowship. Lest there be any fornicator or profane person as Esau, right? Who for one morsel of meat sold his birthright, and people will sell their birthright. and keeps you from inheriting the blessing. That's serious stuff, and kind of one of the things that informs our church discipline is the seriousness of that. We can talk more about that, but I think that's enough for this morning. And so I wish you all a good day, and I'll see you later on this afternoon.